Hello and welcome to our book club, the last one of 2023. And I'm going to go first because I get a bit nervous about doing this. I'm not quite as polished as Gill and Duncan. But I actually have my book, and it's a book I've really, really enjoyed, and it's a little bit different. And I'm going to try and pronounce the author's name. And the author's name is Toshikazu Kawaguchi. There we go. That's what it looks like. It was, wasn't it?
Sounds like one of those Japanese
and
toys.
I think a Tamagotchi is. And it's one that's been translated. So he's a Japanese author, and it's been translated into English. And it's part of a series of 4. And it's called Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And it's set in a dusty old basement cafe in Japan. And it's a series of 4 stories, but they all interlink, and you have a very handy map at the front that tells you who's linked to who. It's a relationship map of the characters because they all have some link that goes through the whole, threads that go through the whole book.
But they're not family related? Or
no, some of them are family related, some of them are boyfriend, girlfriend, right. So it could be a story that jumps around.
Is it contemporary or...?
It's modern.
Right.
It's modern, but it's good. It's beautifully written.
Right.
And I've really, really enjoyed reading it. The only trouble I have is with the Japanese names, and remembering who's who. But they all go along to this coffee shop, and there's an urban myth that this coffee shop can transport you back in time. So a lot of people go there, and they say the first one, she's been. Her relationship's broken down with her boyfriend, and he's gone to America, and she was really unhappy with how it was left. The usual thing, she felt she wanted to say a lot more than she could or did, and so she was looking for reasons, and something kept drawing her back to this coffee shop. And the urban myth is in fact true. If you sit in a particular chair and they bring you a particular cup of coffee, you can get to, by drinking the coffee, you can transport back in time. Now, there are rules.
Mm-hmm. So, not quite a latter-day Mr. Ben.
No, I loved Mr. Ben, but no, that would be funny. No, it's a bit more rules than Mr. Ben. So, you had to sit in a particular chair. You had to understand that what you do in the past cannot change where you are in the present.
Right, so you can only go back.
So you can only go back, and you cannot change the outcome of where you are in the present. So that's what makes it really interesting, because the journey that they go on when they go back in time leads them to a different result than you think it's going to. So they almost... But
when they come back, they're still how it was.
They're still exactly the same, but by saying 1 or 2 things, you can change how you look at life now.
Oh, I see.
And how it could be going forward in the future. The other rule is you have to clear up all that you want to say before your coffee gets cold.
Wow. Oh my goodness, that's not very long.
No, it's not long at all.
Wow.
And time passes at the same speed.
Same speed, yes. So you'll go back. She had to think very carefully about where she wanted to go back to.
Wow.
And she went back in a cloud of steam.
So you get about 10 minutes?
Yes. That's all you have to go back to a certain point.
Oh, it's a
but
tall
it's
order.
really good. And then...
Can you choose your point?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. So they're the ones, and it's a series of 4, and it's a beautifully written book, and I can thoroughly recommend it. I've really enjoyed reading it. It is really good.
Different.
It is really good. Just have to brush up on your Japanese. Anyway, there's my book.
Lovely.
Jill, would you like to go next?
I will indeed. My book is called Miss Benson's Beetle, and it's written by Rachel Joyce, who wrote The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, which I haven't actually read, but I think was made into a film, and I think a lot of people have read it. This is a lovely book. It's sort of an adventure story. It's about female friendship, mostly. The 2 protagonists really are both female. The main protagonist is called, she's Miss Benson, Marjorie Benson, and she is a domestic science teacher set in the 1950s. And she's a spinster and she's a bit frumpy and she hates her job and she hates the children and she's not very good at it. She's a bit of a misfit. And when she was a very young girl, her father had lots of books, and one was about mythical beasts, I suppose. And one of the things he used to talk to her about was this golden beetle that lived in New Caledonia, which is an island, I think, in the South Pacific.
Yes.
I think, yeah. I've never heard of it, have you?
Yeah, I mean,
And anyway, this golden beetle lives there, and she was fascinated as a little girl by this. And so one day, just in a complete mad fit of pique, she just ditches her job. She leaves the school. She steals a few things on her way out. And she decides that she will just cash everything in that she's got. She has a flat that's been left to her by a couple of old maiden aunts, and decides that she will advertise for an assistant and go to New Caledonia and search for this golden beetle and bring it back to the Natural History Museum. So she puts an ad in a paper and interviews a bit of a motley bunch of people that come to want to be her assistant, if you like, 'cause she was paying for the whole trip. And she doesn't like any of them really, but she picks the best of a bad bunch. And the best of a bad bunch then at the last minute bottles out and doesn't want to go. So she's left with this lovely person called Enid Pretty, who
that's
is
a great
the
name.
complete opposite of her. She's small and petite and bubbly and blonde, and she won't go anywhere without her makeup and her vanity bag, and she dresses in pink head to foot. And she sort of ends, by default, she ends up taking her with her, and she doesn't really want to, and they don't get on at all because they're so different. And they spend a couple of months, they have to sail to Australia back in the day,
Right.
obviously, so they spend, I don't know how long, on this boat. And they get to New Caledonia, and she's rented what she thought was a rather swish bungalow for their base, and it's actually a tip, and it's fallen to pieces. But then they sort of embark on finding this golden beetle thing. And it's fascinating, and just how everything develops, and the friendship between them, and how, because they're so different, they almost get on better. And it's just really lovely. I won't spoil it about the golden beetle thing.
I was just going to
Oh,
ask
yeah,
you.
what does happen to me?
No. It's funny. It's interesting. It's a bit of an adventure. It's got a bit of everything, really.
And when was this set?
1950. Starts in 1950. Starts actually way back when the father's talking to her about the golden beetle, but then it jumps quite quickly to 1950 when she's deciding to make this big trip. And it's just all the sort of trials and tribulations and the weather's appalling, and they have to climb this mountain. The beetle's on top of a mountain. And yeah, it's just lovely. It's got a bit of a sad ending and a happy ending, actually, a bit of a mixed ending. But it's got one of those moments, when you read a book and you turn the page and you think, oh my goodness, no, it's one of those moments that you think, no, that can't happen. You know how you picture people when you're reading a book and you have an image of what they're like?
Yes.
And Marjorie was quite a difficult one because she was just this frumpy domestic science teacher, and somebody on Amazon said that if there was ever a film made of it, Miranda Hart would be perfect, and actually she would. Just that whole awkward, socially inept sort of, didn't relate well to people. So if they ever did, I think Miranda would be the perfect fit for it. But it's really lovely. It's a feel-good book.
Right.
It really is, and it's just a great adventure. Yeah.
Very girly book or not?
Probably more. So I think you would probably enjoy it because it's beautifully written and the characters are great. Yeah. So yes, I would thoroughly recommend. If you just want a feel-good book, a really good story, nice easy read, Miss Benson's Beetle is the way to go, I think.
Yeah.
I love the cover.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's really nice, isn't it?
That's it. I love to think that's
great.
what the beetle looks like. Oh gosh, I hope.
Does it even exist, this beetle?
Yeah,
she
I
doesn't
hope
even know if it
so.
exists. She doesn't know if it's a fictional thing or not. But she's out there looking for it. Yeah,
good for her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, I'm going to talk about what I've read by Konstantin Kissin. Some of you may have heard of him. And it's called An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West. And it's a very funny book. It's not a novel. It's really a social discourse, I suppose. He's a Russian comedian, really. Went to school in this country. His parents felt he had more of a future here, and so while they were still in Russia, they sent him to a boarding school here in this country. And the whole book really tries to get through this whole business whereby we're supposed to feel bad and guilty about everything in the West at the moment. He talks about geopolitics, everything from sort of climate change to global corporates, and it's just a very amusing but very provocative view on, I suppose, the current woke environment. He takes quite a balanced view though, but he points out in great detail how we should be very thankful for an awful lot of what we've got, and stop beating ourselves up so much. But he does it in a very, very amusing way. But you do come away, having read this, very much aware, as if one isn't already, of the stunning levels of hypocrisy that we seem to accept, and also how there is so much virtue signalling on different fronts in the West, and how we really are politically just playing at things, and how if we really want to affect change, it's not going to happen by what we do in the West. It's going to happen by what changes in China, in Latin America. Those are going to be the drivers, whether it's climate change or other things. And I think it spawned an awful lot of lectures he's given. There's a very, very...
Didn't you put one of his lectures in the last newsletter in your
I did,
last
yes.
word? Yeah.
That was one that he was invited to the Oxford Union,
Yeah.
and debated there along with Toby Young, I think, and Free Speech Nation. But I think what's very interesting is that sometimes you read a lot of books on the same sort of topic which can leave you thoroughly depressed and sad by the end of it. But he approaches it with huge amounts of humour.
Yeah, I've actually read it too. I think, and it's I really enjoyed it.
And it's very funny, very
readable,
very enlightening.
Yeah.
And I think, if you like, he gets away with it because he is an immigrant, and what he's constantly saying is, you have no idea how bad it is in some other countries.
Be careful what you wish for, isn't it? That's what he's saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yes, An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West. It's not a long book, but it's very engaging and absolutely fascinating.
It's good on Audible too, actually, if you listen to it.
Yes, because he reads it actually.
I was going to say he reads it
himself on Audible. Yeah, definitely a good read.
It is a good read.
An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West.
Great.
And that's mine.
Oh. Okay. So what are we all reading over Christmas? Anybody got any ideas, any recommendations?
I'm going Bridget Jones's Diary again. I've read it before. I make no apology for reading it again over Christmas. I loved it.
No, I don't often come back and reread books, actually.
Don't you?
In fact, I almost never do. I don't know why that is. Because you come back and you watch films again, but I rarely. It's probably got to be about 20 years before I'll come back and read a book again. I did reread Brideshead.
Lovely.
But no, I haven't got anything lined up for Christmas. Yourself?
No, I don't think so. I'm toying with Sherlock Holmes because I've never read Conan Doyle before. And I don't know why, but at Christmas I always think I should be reading classics. I don't know why. It's anything to do with Charles Dickens, I'm not sure. But I just do. Last year I did Agatha Christie for the first time. I'd never read Agatha Christie. And I just think there's certain authors, aren't there, that you think, well, gosh, they're so famous and they're so well known and so, revered that maybe you should give them a go. So I might do that. I don't really know.
Yes,
but open to recommendations.
I've never read Dickens, and I don't. And I think I will meet my maker having never read Dickens.
It's hard going.
I haven't even tried. I remember at university a lot of people were reading Dickens, and I preferred to read Zola.
I love Zola.
And
he's a bit misery got Zola though, isn't he?
I mean, he is, but similar social topics, I presume.
Better stories, I think.
Yeah. Oh yes, grittier. Grittier. Yeah. Yes. Anyway,
the COVID bell has just rung.
Yes. You knew the whole madness that was COVID. We had to have a sort of bell fitted, or push bell fitted to the front door.
Which you've never had before.
We've never had before, and
wish it wasn't there now.
Somehow or other, it stayed, and I keep thinking I'm going to rip it out.
Every time it rings, it just takes you back to
It does. It takes you back. Fortunately, not many people ring it, but anyway.
Anyway, Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
So-
Anyway, thank you very much indeed, and
Have a lovely Christmas, everyone.
Christmas
Happy
New Year.
Christmas.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.